From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South, and I'm Jose Daniel Lopez. Brazil vice presidential candidate Fernando Haddad will visit former President Luis Inácio Lula da Silva in prison. The decision has come after the Electoral Supreme Court banned former president to run for the presidency. The court says Lula is not eligible for office under the Clean Slate Law. The law prohibits candidates from running if they have convictions that have been upheld on appeal. The former president is currently serving a 12-year sentence on alleged corruption charges.
I vote to empower the coalition to substitute the candidate within 10 days, prohibit campaign acts, especially the use of electoral ads related to the presidential campaign on radio and television until the substitution is made, and to remove the candidate's name from the electronic voting program.
Lula's Workers' Party said it will fight to defend his candidacy. They said the former president has the right to be a candidate as long as he can still appeal his charges. The decision to ban him has also ignored the United Nations Human Rights Committee recommendation to allow Lula to exercise his political rights.
We won't abandon Lula. We will present all appeals possible to guarantee his candidacy. As long as he can appeal, Lula should be the candidate. This decision belittles Brazil on the international level and prevents the people to vote freely.
Meanwhile, hundreds of Lula supporters have held a vigil in Curitiba, where the former president is being held. They believe Lula's imprisonment is a measure to avoid the progressive leader to return to office. Latin American leaders and intellectuals have also showed their support. The president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, has accused the region's oligarchy of trying to silence the people. Bolivia's president, Evo Morales, has described the decision as an attack against democracy. Former Argentina's president, Cristina Fernández de Kirchner, has accused the judiciary of being above the law. The message was shared by Ecuador's former president, Rafael Correa. Nobel laureate Adolfo Pérez Esquivel says Lula's imprisonment shows lack of justice. Guatemalan President Jimmy Morales has expelled the mandate of the International Commission Against Impunity in the country. Morales has accused the Commission of interfering in Guatemala's internal affairs. The United Nations mission has been investigating the president for alleged illegal campaign financing. Congress is debating the possibility of removing Morales' impunity in order to bring him to court.
We have officially notified the United Nations Secretary General of the non-renovation of the mandate of the International Commission Against Impunity in Guatemala. We have ordered for the capacity transfers of the corresponding institutions to begin immediately.
Hundreds of demonstrators gathered outside the headquarters of the Commission Against Impunity to reject the president's decision. Students also protested in the central square of capital, Guatemala City. Meanwhile, the public prosecutor said it will try to guarantee the state of the UN mission despite the government announcement.
The International Commission Against Impunity has a mandate, and the state of Guatemala must guarantee its permanence, as the agreement accepted by Guatemala states. Therefore, we are verifying if there is a criminal lawsuit that we could pursue. We were also informed that there were state security forces around the Commission's headquarters.
Colombia's National Liberation Army, or ELN, has said it is ready to release the 9 kidnapped police and military personnel. The armed group has delivered a protocol to Ivan Duque's government to proceed with the release. It has also demanded international observers be present in the exchange. The ELN proposed Cuba and Norway as a third parties since they have accompanied Colombia's peace process. Meanwhile, the government insists the group must end all violence and criminal activities to continue with negotiations. High Commissioner for Peace Miguel Ceballos has asked the ELN to release all of those who have been kidnapped. The government says the ELN has 19 people kidnapped.
When the president referred to kidnappings, he said a very important word. He said all of those kidnapped, meaning not just the 9 kidnapped last month, but all of those who have been kidnapped should be freed.
Meanwhile, the revolutionary alternative forces of the Commons Party are meeting during the weekend. Their members are evaluating how to fulfill the peace process signed in 2016.
Security is the main concern, debated in the revolutionary alternative forces of the Commons' second plenary session. This was the main reason for many members not to attend, but despite fears, the session has a high participation.
We are going to analyze the path we have made, what we have done right, which mistakes we have committed, and how we plan the future. We will debate the next electoral campaign and how we are going to face the current government and its decision. We are also going to discuss how to fully implement the Havana Peace Accords.
They are also urging about the information provided to the media about the disappearances of FARC leaders Iván Márquez and John Moreno.
We need to defeat the enemies of the peace process and avoid tactics such as extradition. Some army operations have put the process at risk. I make a call for the rights of former combatants to be respected, so they can be reintegrated to society. They should have their political and security rights guaranteed.
Some people say Márquez and Moreno are following the law and that details about their situation will be revealed at the right time.
The important thing is that they appear in court when they are called by the Special Jurisdiction for Peace.
At least 72 former combatants have been killed during the reincorporation process. Members have faced insecurity and the lack of guarantees in the legal process. Despite this, the FARC party has insisted it will fight for peace.
We'll take a short break now. Join us again in a minute.
The Pakistani journalist Tariq Ali examines the mass media influence promoted by imperialism. Get access to the analysis of the socio-economic and political life of the whole South America on our screen and platform in English. A critical place committed to the truth to determine the major events that transform the world today. Mondays, only on Telesur. An occasion to enjoy the cultural diversity that defines our South American essence. Come along to find out the story behind these personalities, traditions, and artistic expressions that unite us as a whole. Real Lives. Saturdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. The Argentinian currency, the peso, has plunged once again as the country prepares to receive bailout funds from the IMF. People are worried that the measures taken by the government are not going to be enough to solve the crisis.
Local traders in Argentina are worried about the crisis after the devaluation of the local currency that has reached 42 pesos per dollar. President Mauricio Macri and his cabinet didn't deliver a hopeful message.
We know the situation worries our people a lot, but know that we are working very hard to create measurements that will restore confidence.
The central bank has auctioned a total of $775 million in dollar reserves, but economists say this measure will only cause a greater devaluation and stronger austerity measures. Meanwhile, the International Monetary Fund issued a strong statement in support of Macri's government.
If we continue to auction our reserves, by the end of the year we will not be able to pay our external debt and buy dollars. We're also seeing that big businessmen are taking out big sums of money. around $2 million in each bank wire. They are also betting against the peso. The results are showing that the measures taken by the government are feasible. The Argentinian people have realized this is not working. We might be facing the same crisis we did in 2001.
The International Monetary Fund agreed to an early release of bailout funds requested by Argentina, hoping this can avoid a deeper social and economic crisis.
11 people have been arrested in Argentina after different looting attempts, 4 of them underage. The events took place in the provinces of Mendoza and Chubut. Experts say these episodes could become more frequent as the economic crisis deepens. Argentina's currency, the peso, has devaluated after the government asked for a $50 billion loan to the International Monetary Fund. Our correspondent in Buenos Aires, Sabrina Roth, has more details.
Confusion is the main word to describe the events occurred here in Argentina. Earlier in the morning, different videos started circulating where we could see lootings in different cities across the country. In the province of Chubut, 9 people were arrested for a looting organized through a WhatsApp messages chain. In the province of Mendoza, 1 looting was also registered in the city of Guaymallén. Other lootings were reported, but they were actually thefts with fire guns. The Secretary of Security in Mendoza said social organizations are responsible, but it did not show any evidence to prove this statement, which has created even more confusion in a week when panic has spread due to the currency's devaluation. On Thursday, $1 was equivalent to 42 pesos. The main food suppliers halted their activities. Under these circumstances, the ghost of 2001 reappears in Argentina. People are already suffering the effects of the adjustment policies imposed by the International Monetary Fund agreement that makes daily life for many citizens just impossible.
That was Sabrina Roth from Argentina. Workers have protested in Ecuador against the new economic measures announced by the government. They said President Lenin Moreno didn't comply with their demands.
Members of the popular and solidarity economy sector gathered in the Park Arbolito in the center of Quito. Several workers arrived from different provinces of Ecuador with banners and music. They made public their demands and disagreements against several policies implemented by the Ecuadorian authorities. One of their disagreements is the bill of the public procurement organic law presented by the Assemblyman Henry Cucalón.
All the organizations of the popular and solidarity economy are together with a single purpose, that the law of public procurement be respected where all the figures of the popular and solidarity economy are immersed.
The members argue they feel affected by the government's decisions, saying that their incomes have been reduced. They also claim they cannot compete against big companies in light of the new legislation.
We are here to defend the rights of the popular and solidarity economy and not allow them to once again violate what we have achieved with great effort.
In one of its latest messages, the government has announced that 1.3 million in productive credits will be financed to reactivate economic growth, benefiting micro and small businesses and the popular and solidarity economy. However, several sectors claim that President Lenin Moreno didn't comply with any of the economic proposals.
It is one of the announcements of millionaire injections for the promotion of the popular and solidarity economy. However, those credits or that money, it has not arrived. And if it does, it comes with 25 to 28% interest, which is cruel for this type of developing economy, which is a popular and solidarity economy.
The workers expected to meet with President Lenin Moreno to discuss the popular and solidarity economy rights, but they had no response. They therefore announced that they will continue with the struggle until their demands are heard. Denise Herrera, Telesur, Ecuador.
Ecuador has dismissed its highest court. The country will have no constitutional court for 60 days or until the council appoints new judges. According to the council, the decision was made on the basis that in 2012, the court made rulings in favor of former President Rafael Correa. Denise Herrera has more.
Hello, yes, indeed. The Citizens Participation and Social Control Council has ratified this, the decision to seize the to see the 9 judges of the Constitutional Court of Ecuador. This decision was taken unanimously, and the court now enters into a constitutional vacancy for 60 days, while the new and final judges are appointed. Also, the council decided that will be no transitory judge, and also this decision was taken because the council decided and considered the irregularity in its appointment, and also they consider the judges were close to the former government. Some critics argue the decisions taken by the council, that the council doesn't have the real power to dismiss the judges, and also some critics argue that it lacks legitimacy because this council were appointed by the government, the current government. So now, for now, Ecuador doesn't have a constitutional court. That is all for now. We will keep you posted with more information as soon as we can. Back to you, Agli.
That was Denise Herrera from Quito. Nicaragua's Foreign Minister Denis Moncada has announced the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights mission will leave the country. According to Moncada, there is no need for the mission to remain in Nicaragua. The foreign minister says he maintained talks with the mission at the High Commissioner's headquarters in Geneva. Earlier, the UN High Commissioner released a report on human rights and its situation in the country.
The mission is ready to leave the country tomorrow, and we will continue our relationship. Nicaragua and our government will continue with their normal relationship with the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, following all the protocols.
Meanwhile, the government announced a 5.20% increase in the average minimum wage. The government had decreed the hike in March, before the political crisis started in mid-April. People are hopeful, the country's economy will now recover. 2 minors were found dead after being arrested by alleged police officials in Honduras. The victims were arrested in capital Tegucigalpa. Their bodies were found in the outskirts of the capital. Authorities have said the case could be linked to organized crime. 2 men were also killed in August by alleged criminals dressed as security officials. Staying in Honduras, the hearing over the murder of indigenous activist Berta Cáceres has started. The trial against the 8th suspect is expected to start on September 10. Cáceres was killed in March 2016 after leading the fight against hydroelectric plant project in the indigenous Lenca territory. Mexican President-elect Andrés Manuel López Obrador will meet with the relatives of the 43 disappeared students from Ayotzinapa. Families are urging authorities to create a commission to clarify the disappearance in 2014. They have rejected the government's version that say that the 43 victims were kidnapped and burned by a criminal gang. Still in Mexico, López Obrador has said that the world is looking forward to his foreign policies. He has expressed his interest in strengthening the country's relations with other Latin American countries.
We have to be exemplary. I've always said the best foreign policies are the ones that are an extension of the local policies. So we won't intervene in other countries' affairs, because we don't want other countries to intervene in the issues which are our internal concern. There is an old tradition of foreign politics in our country. That's why countries from around the world, especially Latin American countries, are very happy, because they know that Mexico is back to their old political tradition.
Intervenga en asuntos que solo corresponden a los mexicanos.
Costa Rica and Spain are strengthening their cooperation, especially in environmental issues. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez and President Carlos Alvarado have chaired an event on environment and climate change. Sánchez also paid a visit to the headquarters of the Inter-American Court of Human Rights. On his way back to Madrid, he stopped to meet with the Dominican Foreign Minister.
On Costa Rica's behalf, I have to say that we are very grateful for Spain's help on many matters. As such, on the subject of local governments, subjects concerning climate change, and more recently, in the efficiency of cooperation.
Bolivian President Evo Morales said the country has submitted a control memorial to a lawsuit filed by Chile. This relates to a decade-old dispute over whether Chile has the right to use a river that crosses their shared border. Our correspondent, Freddy Morales, brings us more from La Paz.
Bolivia has petitioned the International Court to force Chile to grant Bolivia direct access to the Pacific Ocean. It's a dispute that dates back decades. Also, back in 2016, Chile made the same legal bid. Now Bolivia wants a corridor to the sea to boost its exports of natural gas and minerals. Chile argues Bolivia already has access on favorable terms. Both countries have legal petitions before the courts. Judges will deliberate for several months before setting the date for a ruling.
Grenada has set a date for its national referendum. The vote will determine if the Caribbean Court of Justice will be the country's final appeal court. November 6th this year will be a historic day for the Caribbean. Both Grenada and Antigua Barbuda will hold their referendums on the same day. The vote requires a two-thirds majority to be passed.
The time is now for us in this land of ours to make a bold decision. And therefore, tonight I take this opportunity to announce that on November 6, 2018, our country, our citizens, we call upon to make one such bold decision to vote in a national referendum for the Caribbean Court of Justice to replace the Privy Council as the final court of appeal for Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique.
We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this.
Kiedy pan minister opracuje normy zanieczyszczeń dla środowiska odnośnie zanieczyszczeń gazowych?
Ja chcę czyste powietrze, żeby nie śmierdziało, żeby moja wnusia żyła w czystości, w czystym powietrzu, zdrowo, tak? Żeby mogła żyć naprawdę zgodnie z przyrodą.
Telesur Documentaries presents Big Business, Negligent Conditions Behind the Food Industry and the Indifference of Authorities. Sunday, only on Telesur.
We are always there tracking the news. We seek equality. We defend the truth. It's a hard job, but we are not alone. We count on a new ally.
Welcome back. Voters in Mauritania have cast their ballots for the legislative election. This electoral process will test President Mohamed Ould Abdel Aziz's popularity before next year's presidential elections. Aziz had been frequently accused by the opposition of human rights abuses. He has described opposition leaders as villains and troublemakers. Presidents and heads of states across Africa have arrived in Beijing for the summit of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation. Chinese President Xi Jinping has met with several African leaders to discuss international and regional issues. The summit will promote diplomatic, economic, and bilateral relations between both partners. The forum will begin on September 3rd. 500 candidates will run for 80 seats in the Rwandan parliamentary election. About 400 international observers from more than 20 countries are expected to monitor the electoral process. According to the National Election Commission, 7 million people will cast their ballots on Sunday. Now let's take a look at other stories making headlines from around the world.
Thousands took to the streets in Germany as part of a counter-protest against the anti-immigration silent march that was taking place at the same time. Protesters held banners with slogans including "Fascism never again," "War never again." According to local media, numerous police units were deployed to avoid clashes. Palestinians have rejected the US decision to cut all funding for the UN agency that assists millions of refugees. Social organizations described the move by President Donald Trump's administration as cruel and irresponsible.
This aid is a right for the refugees, not a right for Trump to satisfy Israel and others who stole our land.
Iraqi military commanders have hosted their Russian, Iranian and Syrian counterparts in Baghdad to discuss security cooperation in the Middle East. The four countries have created joint operations to coordinate the fight against the Islamic State.
Palestinians have resumed their Great March of Return protests near the Gaza border. At least 120 protesters were injured by Israeli forces. According to the Palestinian Health Ministry, they deployed tear gas and used live ammunition to disperse crowds. The March of Return was launched along the Gaza-Israel border on March 30 to demand the right for Palestinians to return to their pre-1948 homes.
Let's go!
We come to the end of this news brief. This and many other stories you can find it on our website at telesurtv.net/English. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Jose Daniel Lopez. Thank you for watching.